Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone, to DAM for Financial Services and Insurance. We're sort of midway point in the day. I hope everyone's doing great, learning lots, meeting new good DAM people along the way. And I would love to now introduce you to our next panel session. And this panel session is called Ensuring a Secure Future for Your DAM. We want to put our expert panelists to the test, so please send us your questions on the Q&A tab at any point throughout the session. So to start with, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists, and I will go with Carrie first. Hello, Carrie.
Hi, thanks, John, and hi, everybody. I'm Carrie McDonald. It's great to meet you all, or be on with you all today. I am a senior customer onboarding manager at Binder, and I oversee mainly our DAM strategy and deliver DAM implementations to our enterprise customer base. So that is where I'm coming from today, as well as my background in library and information science. So I leverage that daily when working with customers to deliver their DAM solutions. So very pleased to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. And we are also joined by James. Hello, James.
Hello, John, and hello, everybody. I'm James Wonke, Senior Implementation Consultant at Widen. Very similar role to Carrie. I've spent the majority of my days implementing our new customers, as well as working with our existing customers to address their strategy and to help set them up for success for the long term in terms of their DAM solution. So excited to be a part of today's conversation.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about DAM, but we're going to talk about some topics we feel that are sort of maybe on the top of everyone's minds right now, things that are be important to you in financial services or insurance, as well as just some good DAM topics. So what we did is that over the last few weeks, James, Carrie, and I, we all met and we talked DAM shop for a while. And we came up with some topics. And I believe these topics will be added into the chat window so people can see the types of themes. So we're going to talk about most of them. We're going to try and get to them all. But as we have these sort of themes in front of us, we want you, all those great attendees, to start pinging us with these questions or other questions. You got two DAM experts here. It's your time to be like, but I want to know about this. So to review, the things that we're kind of interested in today are compliance and security practices. I think that's a great thing to discuss about with a financial services and an industry background. Number two, mergers and acquisitions, scalability. That seems very important as well. Number three, the real role of governance, if not just governance at all. We've heard it many times today in some of the other presentations. So I think governance is something we might want to talk about. Integrations and connections. Are you staying ahead of the DAM game? Again, we've heard some of these touch points in other presentations today. And I think being integrated and connected is a theme we all want to sort of be more mindful of. Obviously, what are the industry challenges and opportunities that James and Carrie are seeing with their clients and the types of questions they're being asked? And then this one was an interesting one. DAM requires agility and responsive. So how do you secure that good future going forward? And then sort of in a closing thing, if we get to have time to it, what are we all learning from the pandemic? What have your clients been saying to you? And definitely, I think this was a great opportunity for those of you attendees to start going, yeah, how are we going to get to this? Or what are you hearing some of the clients say? So what I'm going to do then is these topics are going to be put into the chat so everyone can sort of see the themes. I would love for you all to start thinking of some great questions to ask. I'm going to stop sharing this so you can now see all of us, so we can all enjoy. So the questions are gone, the questions still exist. But you've got the three of us here to sort of engage with you all now. And so let's begin with sort of the big topic of compliance and security. Big words, we say them all the time. I know probably a lot of your clients, James and Carrie, mention these words to you. And I'm sure a lot of people in attendance today are like, that's important to me. My industry is specific to these types of issues. Compliance is something I hear from the top of management to the doers to everyone's thinking about compliance and security. So to begin off and to kick this sort of discussion off, I'll go to James first and say, what are you hearing and how does DAM fit into the whole notion of compliance and security considerations?
Yeah, That's a big one, John, and especially in this industry, top of mind all the way around in everything we do. So compliance and security, I think at its core within a digital asset management solution really drills down to the asset permissions as well as the user permissions. Who can access what, and how can they access, how can they interact with those pieces of content? So at its core, that's the primary security compliance that we hear about. Now, in addition to that, there's also, when we say security, the availability of our assets, the making sure that those assets are backed up and that those are stored in case there is some sort of disaster or disaster recovery plan that needs to go into action. So all of security is really a wide bucket, but I think at its core, it's really around providing the right access to the right content at the right time for our audiences or those that are consumers of the DAM.
Mm-hmm. Carrie, are you seeing similar issues with some of your clients and those ideas of the compliance and security issues?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, rights management is a key part of the asset lifecycle, one, of course, but then definitely when considering security and compliance issues. So I see, metadata being really key, of course, for managing the rights and access to those assets, as well as the user permissions, as James mentioned. And I think that using, metadata and then also versioning of assets to really control what is in the DAM, make sure that you are compliant with your own brand standards, and then also, of course, whatever standards you're attempting to meet in the industry, right? So those are definitely core pieces. And I think James alluded to something really interesting too, that not only is it about the DAM system, or I should say the assets in the DAM and how we're managing their security, their compliance, but it's also about the solution you're working with, right? Making sure that it has proper backup, that it maybe is certified with independent certifications, has certain security protocols in place, and also when that program is integrated with other systems, are we sure that the integrated system is matching our security model, right? So yeah, it's a loaded question because it kind of affects a lot of different things, and naturally has to, because it's a part of the digital world.
Now, Carrie, James mentioned user roles and permissions. Now, as a DAM person for the last 22 years, I love user roles and permissions because it's all about access, but it's all about compliance and security at the same time. Do you see a lot of your clients sort of not prepared for the discussion of user roles and permissions, or are they like, oh, I'm on board, I'm with you on this one?
That's a great question. I would say it's actually a mixture. I think some customers have a really set idea in mind of what they would like to implement in terms of user permissions. And sometimes it makes sense to implement just that. And sometimes it makes sense to solution maybe something different. Instead of replicating what existed in a prior system, sometimes based on the new system you're moving to, it could make sense to, create a different solution. But overall, yes, I think permissions is a big topic of conversation during the implementation phase. And I see a lot of customers knowing they need them. Some have a really set idea in mind, and others need some of that consultation. And of course, that's what the implementation phase is for. But I think that, yes, rights and roles are key. I love always championing sort of this more open access, idea of having more people access more content in the DAM so that you're sharing, you're reusing, but that inevitably means that you need to be controlling the content too. You need to be rights managing it. But then separately, a security model that's maybe a little bit more siloed could work for other customers based on whatever the business is.
Yeah. James, user roles and permissions, is that something a lot of your users are prepared for? Again, a lot of the presentations today, we were hearing about people being prepared for their DAM as they go through their journey. How are you seeing some of your clients respond to user roles and permissions? Tell me more.
Yeah. I think a lot are prepared, or they come in with an idea, and then our role, of course, is to kind of help them facilitate or ask some clarifying questions around that idea. So I think everyone comes in with, I need to get these into a central repository and I need to permission them out, but how I go about doing that is something that maybe they haven't quite taken that next step on. I know roughly how I want it to look and feel, but I don't know how to execute that. And I think
Awesome.
Carrie brought up a really good point, is that you have to balance the fine line of making content available, because that's of course why we have a digital asset management solution, but also keeping risk management as topic number one. So I think that is the challenge there, is walking that fine line.
I think there actually could be an entire session just on user roles, rights, and permissions. I think it's that valuable and part of everyone's damn journey. So let's be really topical. A question has just come in about security. Go figure. Anonymous, well done, Anonymous, wherever you are. Great job. Anonymous asks to James and Carrie, what additional security challenges have you seen with more DAM users working from home? Welcome to the pandemic. We're all sort of remote at most of the time. Great question. What are you seeing?
That's a great question. I think actually something that comes up a lot is customers trying to access their, their whole tech stack, but then the DAM inside of that using VPN maybe for added security due to their business practices. So that is something that is, I think, something a lot of people have been introduced to if they hadn't before, especially in this past year. So that's just an interesting one, and is something that I think we need to be mindful of when we think about like speed and performance of every technology, just because, when you're remote into a network, that can be impacted, honestly. So that is something that I think we can, sort of work on, prepare for in the industry, the implications there. So that's a top one that comes to mind for me. James, I'm not sure if you have a similar experience or something else.
Yeah, I would echo that, Carrie. And I would also say just the pandemic really thrust upon us everything in such quick order that there was a lot of scrambling to get things in order, and maybe things weren't always done through the proper protocols or through the normal channels that they would be. And so I think just that risk that comes with, oh, John needs access to something, and normally we wouldn't give him access, but we don't really have another way because we're not all together. And so just kind of breaking some of those normal channels or those normal protocols as a result of the situation we were all put in. And then just kind of making sure that everyone has the proper security on their own home internet, which is something that is hard to control since we're not all on the same network. So there's just so many aspects to it that it certainly is a difficult one. But luckily the DAM can certainly help with at least the distribution once all those security checkboxes are made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great question. I think when I hear DAM, I always think security. And welcome to the world in which we live, where remote is kind of almost like an option. It's actually might probably never go away for many of us. So I think that question's quite very present and immediate in our minds. And for everyone on the call today and who are the attendees thinking of what their DAM journey might be, I think you really need to think of that real current state, that remote's kind of not going away. It's actually probably going to be with us as a real option for our business. A good question. Excellent question. We have another sort of a security kind of question-ish for the two of you. This one's interesting. Again, Anonymous, well done, Anonymous, very well done. How do you deal with assets that may need cold storage? And how do you secure that? Great question, Anonymous. I like that one. Yeah. Who wants to go first on that one?
Yeah, I can start with that. For cold storage, we have an area of the site, or we have a separate archive area where those assets can kind of be stowed away while still providing them access and visibility and instant retrieval to those assets. And so I think that's something that it takes some work to determine what is a cold storage asset, what is an active storage asset, and where do we draw the line there? And so I think that's a big conversation in order to know what is living where, because those are still going to be in two separate areas. But we've got some solutions, and Carrie's nodding her head, so I think she's probably thinking the same thing. But cold and active storage are two different areas within a solution for us.
Yeah, well, that's what we usually recommend having, same as James, two different spaces. So you have one active, ready to use, and then another area for, archived or cold storage. Also, maybe some of the archive lives in the active site, and that's sort of the in-between, right? And I think you bring up a good point, like what is the trigger for determining that something is archived or obsolete? And then further from that when it should be in cold storage. So that's something that we think about, with metadata and rights management. Back to the beginning of the conversation, really is like, who is determining that, and at what time is it feasible to do that? But then, yeah, in terms of storage, I think that is, for cold storage, it's probably best to be under lock and key, right? And certain people have access, and the active files are really what we want to promote and feature. And then maybe one day they'll, meet the cold storage locker and their other friends in there. But yeah, I would follow on that the same way.
That's a good damn story. I like that. Don't need the damn friends. First of all, thank you to the audience. The questions are really starting to populate now. This is great. One more before we go into another sort of a theme here, but this one's interesting. For the two of you, this is from Jeffrey. Does your compliance audit department audit your dam? If so, how often? Are you hearing that with some of your clients? The whole idea of that compliance and audit or assessment, whatever the type of the verb is. Are you seeing that with some of your clients?
Yeah. Sorry, James, if you wanted to go. I'll kick it off. I think audits are something that we're seeing happen at greater frequency. The past year, actually, probably coincides with the pandemic, but the past year or two, really around customers who have been using the system for a while. They have maybe attended events or conferences like this. They have surveyed users. They have really gone into the adoption phase outside of implementation, and are thinking of taking a step back and relooking and revising. And I think auditing is a great thing to do in your current DAM solution. I would recommend it, being a part of sort of your annual review of the dam. If not, have a smaller amount of auditing that you're doing, maybe of users, of assets, like on a quarterly basis. But definitely the audit piece is key, especially now when content is getting spun up and distributed at like higher and higher rates. There's just more to handle. And so that requires, I think, more frequent auditing to make sure you're compliant, and then also more frequent, maybe like appraisal and even like purging of assets to ensure that people really are getting the best in class, like what is important this month almost, right? That's like how immediate I think the audit schedule needs to be, to make sure that things are top notch immediately and constantly.
I agree. I think there's, a scheduled audit is what we normally see, like Carrie said, certain activities on a quarterly, annual basis. But I think it also comes down to, ongoing auditing, ongoing compliance, and having a team or an individual that is really responsible for double checking things that are being ingested, double checking things that are being changed within the site, and just staying on top of things. So we often recommend some sort of DAM coalition or a center of excellence, a grouping of individuals that is responsible specifically for those activities and keeping up on those, because that's an easy one to forget. Compliance and auditing is not normally one where you get a ton of volunteers to say, yep, I want to do that. Let's sign me up. But by having that group that is responsible and the ownership is clear, I think is the key.
Yeah. I love that. The center of excellence. Yeah. It's a great way.
I always recommend clients, never forget that audit assessment part of it. I think it's healthy for an organization to do that on a regular basis, which is an incredibly good segue into our next topic, which is the role of governance. Now, Carrie sort of mentioned as well, with sort of like the metadata updates. Tell me more. What are you hearing from your clients, James and Carrie, in terms of governance? Because I think governance is not just a business problem. I think it's a business and a technical thing put together. And I think the two work very well together, but I do believe in the power of governance. In fact, I would say governance is not an option. You must have governance to have your dam function effectively. But again, that's a business and a system technology put together. So I'd love to ask the two of you, what are you seeing in terms of the real role of governance happening with many of your clients?
I can kick this one off, Carrie. The role of governance for us, we talk about that throughout the entire implementation process. Anytime we make key decisions, let's document those. Let's make sure that is included in the governance. And so that way we have a single source of truth, kind of like the dam is going to be for our digital assets, but for our processes and for the actions that are going to take place and expected to take place within the solution. So that being said, governance is something that is never finalized. It's never complete. It has to evolve with the solution. And so I think that's the biggest challenge we hear is we had a governance, but it's not updated. And the further it falls behind, the harder it is to go back and update it. And so I think, kind of like our auditing conversation just a minute ago, it has to be something that continues to be top of mind, consistently revisited and kept up to date. But it should be looked at as the single source of truth for our processes and for the role that the site has within the organization.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Carrie, what are you hearing?
Yeah, I very similar on that front, where the minute that you say governance, I even think of like system of record. So that's like what the dam is for assets, as James was saying, but then also your governance plan or document or strategy is the system of record for decisions made during the initial implementation, and then decisions made after the fact. I think that having a plan or a document, something that is strategically built out and then updated over time, is something that will, promote really the optimization of your dam long term, but then also it kind of saves you when maybe you have turnover, in the sort of dam center of excellence, using, James's term there. If there's turnover there, maybe then the whole platform that was once built, it won't fall away. It will just be able to be transferred peacefully into the next person. Also, I think that the governance plan allows you to strategize the addition of new like business units or divisions or users. So sometimes we see customers starting with one or a few teams, and then wanting to roll out over the course of months or years to more people across the organization. So when you have a good set of rules around how often we're looking at assets, who is allowed to look at assets, who is allowed to even upload them, what kind of metadata do we want to apply, and how often do we maybe survey people around how relevant that metadata is, or how relevant the assets are. Using all of that, you can just easily extend that template to any new group that comes onto the dam, and it saves you a lot of rework in the end. So I think a governance plan can be a really like strategic initiative to take on in that way too, so that you're operationalizing the dam instead of having to redo it every time.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, James, you mentioned like it's ongoing, and governance is not something that begins and it ends at a certain point in time. Like dam itself, it's a program. It doesn't stop and end. It keeps on going, and so should the governance, because like you said earlier as well, Carrie, even like the appraisal of the assets, is our metadata up to date? Are our roles and permissions still accurate to the types of assets that we have? So I'm a big believer in governance, and it's great to hear that you're hearing this as well from your lot of your clients saying that governance is important to me. We have kind of a governance related question here, which is quite great. This is a good one. This is from Peter. Thank you, Peter. So James and Carrie, how do you avoid feature creep with today's agile development approach that is often single feature based that may conflict with the current data structure? I like this question. It's a challenging one. How do we feel about good old feature creep with agile, and how does that affect what thing that we're doing with our dams? Good question.
That is a good question. I think something that we're seeing more so the past year in particular, I think just with this like real push for the digital economy and digital transformation efforts that basically are required to support the digital economy. I think in that you're also seeing platforms adjust or think about their product strategy around like making it even more strategic, I guess, is thinking about, instead of just like one feature that's enabled for this one or few use cases, let's think about all of the potential implications it could have across the modules in the platform and all of the integrated systems as well that ideally the dam is hooked up to. So I think like strategy is just what comes to mind is really investing in finding the right features to build and deploy at the right time. And that is, I think, just being furthered or catalyzed really by the current like remote world that we're in. So I think that there is sort of this natural adjustment to ensure that there's not that sort of creep there.
Excellent.
I think it's a great question, and one that I know we've probably all encountered at some point in time is, oh, I needed to do this. So I think Carrie mentioned a really big one for us, which is strategy. We like to sit down, have an ongoing strategy that's built out with our client base so that we know what's in scope for your next 3 to 6 months. If it's not listed on there, hey, we can look at prioritizing that in the future. But right now we're sticking to these use cases that we've already identified that we're already working towards. And then I also just go back to that DAM Center of Excellence. I think that is a great resource to say, hey, I'll bring it up with the team, but we've got to vet it out a little bit more, kind of as your way of saying, I'm not saying no, but I'm also not saying yes. And let's think about it, but let's also think about what is the impact that maybe it has elsewhere, or where does that fall into line with some of the other use cases that maybe could benefit you more, or that impact our ROI of our solution even more than that one feature.
Well, as a point of inspiration for the attendees today, DAM Center of Excellence Governance. Hopefully, maybe that's a takeaway. You can go back and say, I think we need this. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
I think that's a great conversation you might have with your managers and your entire team, either later on today or tomorrow. So I love that. Before we get to our next topic, a great question just came in. I want to, because it's sort of on topic in terms of like the security issues. So for the two of you, this came in from Jeffrey. With the financial services industry already being secure and needing to get more and more secure every day, especially as we are in a remote world, do you feel that DAM vendors are up for the security challenges? Interesting, good question. How do you feel? Are you up? You ready for the security challenges for a remote world?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think the answer is we have to be. If we know that we want to be partners with you and we know that those are your expectations, that is absolutely something that we are up for. And so I think we are thinking about that just as much as you are, knowing that in order for us to deliver the solution with the security and compliance certificates and expectations alignment there, we have to be able to do that ourselves. And so I would say absolutely that is something top of mind for us.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. Same. It's true. It's mission critical, right? To be highly secure, not even just secure, right? But just to like you were saying in the audience there, it just has to get more and more secure really as we continue on in this remote world. So that's definitely something. I think part of the product strategy, investment that I was mentioning before, that's a part of it, right? Is to ensure knowing that that is required, mandatory. How do we ensure also every other piece of the pie that we improve on, maybe not just our security protocols, but any other feature or module that's released, is it meeting all of those same things that are needed, and how do we ensure that? So that's a big part of it, a big part of really this past year and coming year. I think it's top of mind, maybe more than ever.
Yeah, as we're still in this situation that we're in, but I think the last year has taught us to really up our game. I mean, security was always there, but now it's more present because people are realizing I'm working from my home office. It's these types of issues, but it's also increased the opportunity to say how important DAM is. I've seen many of our clients say, "This is great. I didn't realize how powerful DAM was," because they're all accessing it in these remote, secure, situations. So I think it's a great plugin for. I think DAM's doing very well right now. So let's get to our next topic, because two questions have come in that are very much on topic. So I would love for all of us to have a quick conversation about integrations and connections. It came up in one of the keynote speech today, actually, with Liberty Mutual Insurance. It was mentioning to be integrated and to be connected. And I love this types of conversation, because the question to everyone, who are attendees today is, how are you doing with those integrations and connections? Are you sort of staying ahead of the DAM game? I'm a big believer that DAM is pretty much the most important one. If you're going to have a stack of something, I think DAM's kind of the core of that. But I would love to hear from the two of you. How are you feeling about, what are you hearing from clients, your own product strategy, integrations and connections? How are you feeling?
It's another big one, right? It's so key. I think what we're saying is we're in like this third wave of dam, right? This huge like digital transformation. We're not just tactical or strategic anymore. We're in this like mission critical. We need to be able to optimize our operations at scale, and we need to get everything out there faster and faster than ever before. And integrations are a great way to ensure that that can happen, right? So integrating with e-commerce websites, brand websites, anything that is consumer facing, right? So that the assets that are sent there are version controlled and updated there, coming from the dam as your source of truth, right? But going into those integrated systems, that they are top notch, that they're the best in class ones, that you want to be telling your brand story to the consumer. You want to engage with them. You want those assets to evoke certain moods or or interest in your product, or products, I should say, and even services. So yeah, I think that's where we're seeing a lot of integrations focus in finance and insurance in particular, is with branded sites that consumers are accessing. So that's a key one that for us, we're really strongly focusing on in our product strategy, and it's something that's coming up earlier on, I think, in every implementation now too.
Yeah, I would say comes up every time with every customer now. It used to be one of those where it would come up once in a while. Now it's everyone. I think the most common scenario we encounter, though, is that everyone loves the idea of integrations, but aren't quite ready to implement them or make them live. Because in order to have an effective integration, we also have to have consistent processes, and we have to have something to base those integrations off so that they are doing their intended actions in the right manner. And so, as you mentioned before, Carrie, there is more and more digital content that is being created on a daily basis now than ever before, and that is not, I don't foresee that stopping. And so integrations are such a big piece because most of the teams are not scaling nearly to the level that the amount of digital content is. And so we have to get smarter instead of working harder, and integrations are a great way to do that. It's just often a little bit more effort, I will say, not to scare anybody, but it's a little bit more effort just to get those spun up in the right manner for both those upstream integrations from a project management or some sort of working file type solution into the dam, and then as well as those downstream to the websites and whatever other distribution channels might be. So great conversation. We've got a lot of great integrations that we hear about and we see working fantastic things for individuals. It's just, those processes are really the key to getting those up and running successfully.
If we were to make like a damn fact checklist, I think you just you hinted at one there, James, and that is content is only going to increase in time. There's no down curve on this one. Content in all forms, images, videos, whatever it is, that's only going to be made faster, better, stronger as we go forward. So that's just a damn fact, right? As we prepare for that. So I have there's two really great integration connection questions that are so topical to this. So first one is from Anne. Great one, and sort of tips, alludes to what you were just referring to, James, is what are the most common integrations you see and how do you keep those secure? So I mean, I'm sure the two of you are seeing, oh, I want to integrate with this, this, this. So what are the most common ones you're kind of seeing out there right now?
Yeah. I would say for us, the most common ones are project management tools. So naturally, that's kind of you make the request, you kind of go through the approvals, and then you need to integrate those assets into the dam once they are final. So I would say that is the number one from kind of the pre-dam side and into the dam. And then from the downstream, I would say it's CMS or whatever is powering the websites to get the content to the various locations where it needs to be present, and making sure that the content that is out on those websites, to Carrie's point earlier, is the most up-to-date version. I update it once in the dam, and then wherever that lives, it's automatically updating for me. I don't have to worry about checking all those places individually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. The project management systems into the dam sometimes. Yeah, I think really actually it's the project management systems into the dam. I was thinking about sometimes like Adobe, built assets, but that is the main piece there. And then CMS from the dam out to the world. Sometimes also PIMs might come up. across multiple industries, sometimes with finance and insurance, for, actual integrations into product. But I think that CMS and e-com are key, especially for now.
A few other ones that I'm seeing here where people are mentioning a PIM. A PIM seems to be very popular for people to see. I think I have a PIM. I think I want a PIM. Can I connect to the PIM? Another one here was MRMs, Marketing Resource Management Tools.
Yeah.
That's another one that is there's a common connection that people are seeing here. This is an interesting question, kind of related to the whole idea of integrations and connections. It's from Jeffrey, and he asked the two of you, how do you feel about DAMs and CDNs and APIs? So CDNs, content delivery networks, and APIs. So how do you feel? How are you feeling about those?
That's a very open-ended question, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
That could go a whole session. I feel great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I would say it's exciting. I mean, just the potential of how the DAM can be used in so many different manners, how it can produce content more quickly than ever in every location that we need it through a CDN and through the API. It's just all really exciting. At the same time, I feel like it requires the right individuals and the right team to be able to execute on that vision. And so I think we're lucky enough to have some technical resources that can speak much better to that and can talk about implementing that much more. But I think my initial reaction, how does it make me feel? It excites me. There's a lot of huge potential there.
Yeah, I think the first thing that came to mind was I feel good, which is kind of, not very descriptive, but I think it's just that it's sort of required. It's key. It's critical, I think, to operationalizing the business and the DAM itself and how it actually underpins all of that. So yeah, and it is exciting to see things become interconnected even more so. So I think it's only going to make for better looking content, maybe even, and better interactions with consumers, and just really highlight the utility of DAM in our field. So I think it shines a nice spotlight on us.
I think you may have just created a new T-shirt that says CDNs and APIs. I feel damn good.
Good.
Yeah. So that's on you to make that T-shirt because I would buy that T-shirt. I think that's amazing. We've got about 8 minutes left to go, and there's one more integrations question, but then I want to get to some others. So we've got about 8 minutes-ish to go. The question is from Phil, and this is going back to the whole idea of integrations and connections. And when everyone's doing remote work these days, have you encountered any new challenges when it comes to integrating and connecting DAM services to the existing infrastructure? So we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but any challenges that you were seeing in terms of that integration on a remote work world?
I think for me, the main challenge I see is sort of the immediacy. We need this now and yesterday or maybe a month ago. So I think there's like a timeline challenge, honestly, with getting the DAM to a good place where you have the right assets in with the right structure, so that they are able to actually be consumed by an integration placed on whatever distribution channel it might be. And so I think we're kind of seeing that a lot where we're at odds, maybe, where we're attempting to spend the right amount of time to deliver the right solution in the DAM for just users who are logging in to access, but needing that to be in a spot at the same time where it can be integrated and doing that sort of, otherworldly. I sort of think of it like users who log into the DAM, that's one space, and then you have everything that's happening outside of it, and wanting both of those things to happen at once instead of starting maybe where we used to with just the DAM, the core itself, and then thinking about integrations. So yeah, we've been, strategizing, like doing the work more so in parallel. How do we actually achieve those goals in a shorter timeline while not losing any of the quality of the work that we've typically done? Yeah.
I think that's weird. Just to add, 2 more things. I think the home internet speed is a big one that, it's kind of overlooked, but those big creative files that I now have to upload are not going quite as fast. And plus, if I'm on a Zoom at the same time, it's really dragging my speed down. So I think that's a big one, big challenge. And then I think really just the collaboration. We're not in the office setting anymore where I can, shout over my cue ball to somebody to say I've done something. figuring out what are the collaboration channels that we're using, and how are we doing that consistently so everyone's collaborating in the same manner.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I for one have been on calls, Zoom or other sort of online conferencing calls where people are saying, but my partner's upstairs also on a call, and my kid is also doing their online homework on a call. So forgive me if it's bad connection. And that's just the reality of what we're doing here. So I like the fact that you sort of mentioned, don't forget about that part of the connectivity. Some more great questions are coming in for the two of you. This is great. A question to the two of you from Peter. How to build, I guess the question is, how to build a request for a new asset process? Do you use placeholders, workflows? Interesting, good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter, that's a really good question. I would say, almost starting from the end and then working your way back to the beginning. What is the information, or what is the goal of this particular asset? Who's the audience? What is it that we need to build here? And then what is the information that we're going to need tagged with that asset to make it findable, or to make it able to be used in the desired format of whatever we said. So I think if you start with the end of where you're heading and what the goal and desired outcomes of that asset are, and then work your way back to what information and what do we need to know about this in order to get there, that's a really good place to start.
That's a good question. Carrie, how do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. I think, workflows, managing the request process. I usually recommend that same sort of logic as James just mentioned, thinking about the end deliverable and who and what and at what times does all of that get figured out, right? So starting with what it needs to be, and then thinking about, okay, then where does it actually start, with who? Are they in what way are they requesting it? Is it actually going to be in a system outside of the DAM platform, for instance, or can we actually consolidate that into the DAM platform? And so figuring out those different, the end point and then the initial starting point, and everything can fill in from there. And I do agree that metadata, I love metadata. I think we all do in the DAM world, but metadata is super key, right? It can be used to initiate the request, and then can actually describe whatever's been built and can actually make it findable. So thinking about maybe I usually recommend 3 to 5 key identifiers that actually apply to this asset. That's going to help you know what kind of process to follow to actually generate it and maybe approve and submit it.
I love metadata. I'm on your team.
Yeah.
I love metadata.
We're all metadata people.
That's a good T-shirt too. This question has received a lot of positive ups. So I'll ask this to the two of you. How often? This is from Abby. How often are you working with clients who are specifically digital asset managers versus an employee at a company who is just doing this as a part of another role? Great question. How do you respond to that? Good question.
I think we're seeing more and more that DAM admins, DAM managers are the main stakeholders that we're working with, because there has been a push for that, right? To have that sort of expertise or that particular role as a part of your organization. But there's a lot of utility and, usefulness from having other people involved too, other marketers or even photographers, creatives. So it's not to say that the DAM admin function or DAM librarian function is the only one that can play in that role, but I do think it's a key one to consider, and then also supported by those other roles.
Yeah.
Good. James, how do you feel?
Yeah, for our clients, I think it's about 85% do not have a dedicated DAM admin. So they've got some sort of pooled, resources, DAM admin team that are all kind of taking bits and pieces of it. I would say, to Carrie's point, it does seem to be gaining some traction, which is great. And I think the spotlight is shining on the digital asset management world simply because of the rise of digital content and the focus and the importance of that. But I would say most of our clients are set up as a team, allocating some portion of their role to those responsibilities.
Awesome. We're pretty much out of time here. So to close this off, and first of all, thank you so much to all the attendees for asking these great questions to our DAM experts here. To close off, sort of an inspirational note to the two of you, and I'll each of you go separately. What have you learned from these last, during these pandemic times, and what's your best advice for everyone on the call today? I'll start with you, James.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has just really accelerated and put dam at the forefront of what everyone is thinking about these days. And so I think that's really exciting in this industry. It's great. Security and distribution are all things that are huge things that a dam can really be at the center of solving for. I would say, especially in this industry, from what I know of it, highly competitive. DAM can really be your best friend to represent your brand, your organization in the best possible manner. And so, I think the future is very bright for the DAM industry.
Carrie, what's your advice for the attendees?
I think the thing that comes to mind is connection. I think that with the pandemic, we've all been seeking out connection more and more so, just naturally, of course, with people in our lives, but also, companies within their companies, with their people, their employees, their users, also with their consumers. How do we connect adequately, or not even adequately, really well, right? And how do we do that at a fast pace? So to James's point there, I think that DAM is a core part of that, and it can really catalyze that for your organization. And it's something that we're on the vendor side all preparing for and matching and trying to get ahead of to ensure that we've got all the right solutions for these needs.
Awesome.
Don't forget about the DAM Center of Excellence.
Yes, the DAM Center of Excellence. Love it.
Everyone, please join me in thanking James and Carrie for this excellent panel session. Thank you so much. Next up, we have DAM Choosing the Right Path and Staying on Track with Pacific Light. Thank you, everybody. See you at the next session.
Thank you.